Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the different materials you can use to make a worktop ready to microcement onto. And then we're going to show you how to prepare these surfaces. You can microcement onto plywood, MDF, OSB, anything like that, cement board. But obviously if there's any chance of any moisture getting to it, then we wouldn't recommend the MDF. I would use the ply or the cement board option. Obviously the microcement when it's finished is all waterproof, but if there's any gaps anywhere, obviously if moisture gets in, it will swell it up. So obviously use the marine ply or cement board that's going to be able to handle any moisture that gets to it. You can even microcement over quartz, laminate, those kind of worktops. If you do, you want to use Prime Attack, which is for non-absorbent surfaces, or the high performance primer. So for boarded surfaces, just make sure they're well glued and screwed in place to avoid any movement. Make sure your boards are flat and flush, because if you microcement over it and there's any lips, it will just highlight through every layer of the microcement. Countersink your screw heads and then use some kind of 2-part filler to fill that in. And then the following day, you will razor scrape the excess adhesive off and sand any of those things that you filled in so it's nice and smooth, ready for microcementing. So we've filled in all the countersunk screw heads, we've cleaned off the excess adhesive. Now we want to just make sure that the surface is flat. So if there's any bits of filler or anything like that that's a bit proud, make sure you sand it flat. So when filling your countersunk screw heads, I tend to use the 2-part wood filler, because it goes off quite quick and you can sand it down so you're not wasting time. You can, however, use the microcement base coat, but just be aware that if you do use that, you need to leave it at least 24 hours for it to dry before you do your mesh and your first base coat. The other way is epoxy mesh sand blind. Use the squeegee trowel to apply the epoxy over the mesh. While the epoxy is still wet, then you broadcast the sand over the epoxy, making sure that you cover every bit of epoxy with the sand, otherwise it won't have a key and it'll become a non-absorbent surface. The following day, sand any high spots and hoover up any of the excess sand. The epoxy in the sand is either our high performance primer as an option, or it's as the floor strengthening kit. We don't recommend going onto natural timber like slats of pine or something like that, because it will warp and split. So we always overboard that. And that's it guys, now you've got a completely flat surface ready to microcement onto.